Are you looking for an easy beginner reupholstery project? I have just the project for you. A footstool. You can find these at estate sales and yard sales. You pick one up, grab some fabric, and before you know it, you have a really nice looking footstool. Today on the video, I'm going to show you some easy reupholstery techniques that you can use for a footstool like this or for some of the other projects that you're going to come across. Hi, I'm Cindy with Reinvented Delaware, and we love to repurpose and reinvent all sorts of home decor and furniture, and then we love to teach you how to do these projects so that you can do it for your own home. You can see more on our blog at reinventeddelaware.com, and in the meantime, let's get to it. You'll need a tack nail remover to remove the tiny tacks, and you'll also need a pair of needle nose pliers. The needle nose pliers will help you to rip the fabric off. You can kind of use them as an extension of your hand, and it will save your hand on ripping that fabric out. So use them when you can. You can also use the needle nose pliers to remove some of the nails. The upholstery tack remover is really good at getting underneath the nail head and then being able to lift it up. Expect to see a lot of this underneath the upholstery piece. A lot of these pieces have rusted tacks from over the years. They just rusted out. That upholstery tack remover will help you to remove all that you can. You're not going to be able to remove them all, but I would suggest you remove as many as you possibly can. You see here I'm using the plier to pull that fabric up. That just helps my hand not to have to grip that fabric. Be really careful that you don't jerk your hand in a motion that you could possibly scrape up your knuckles. I've done that plenty of times. Be careful about where all these tacks are going. I try not to pull too much. You can see I'm doing that here. The problem with that is that the tacks themselves can fly all over your workspace. So just be super careful about cleanup afterwards. Here you can see I'm using my thumb to control that tack from flying away. You don't want a bunch of those laying all over the floor. You will have some, so be sure to use the shop vac and clean up your work area. Keep children out of the area while you're working on this kind of thing, and even your dog. Be careful of your dog as well. Once I had all the fabric off, I continued to remove even more of the nails. I removed as many as I could. I couldn't get them all off, and I used a tack hammer to tap them so that they would be flush with the surface of the wood. That's okay to do. Just remove as many as you possibly can. Now it's time to clean up. I start off with a shop vac. I shop vac the whole piece, including the burlap seat area. And I also vacuumed my workspace, my workbench, and around the floor, and I just got up as many of those tack nails as I possibly could. And we're almost ready for paint. But before we paint, I'm going to take this wire brush and I'm going to clean out all the crud that is in the carved areas of the legs. Then I'm going to use a flexible sanding pad in a fine grade to just rough up the surface. Afterwards, I cleaned the piece down with a microfiber cloth that was damp and just got the whole piece really good and clean. I decided to paint this piece, the legs at least, in Fusion mineral paint in the color called Ash. And I used a small artist brush, not the regular paintbrush, to paint these legs. This is just a little easier for cleanup afterwards. It's not a big area, so I don't need to have a lot of paint on the brush. And I find that these small artist brush hold just enough paint for small areas like these detailed legs. I moved indoors for the upholstery part. So I added 2 strips of the upholstery webbing to the bottom of it and then one across. You'll see that at the end. This webbing is going to shore up the loose burlap that was already on the seat. I could have replaced the burlap, but there really wasn't a need to do that, and instead I just decided to use the webbing. Still looks a little bumpy, but don't worry, once the fabric and the batting is on, it's all going to be just fine. I used the original batting that came with the footstool, and I was also going to use a piece of 1-inch foam, but then I realized I didn't really need it. It wasn't big enough, and I thought this would be enough cushion. I added a fresh piece of upholstery weight batting and a pretty piece of grain sack style fabric, and I measured all the way around to make sure that I had enough to wrap around to the bottom side. I started to staple in the center of each section, and then I worked my way outward. I had to do some adjustment to make sure that I had enough wraparound for all the pieces, for the batting, for the fabric. You can see here I had to make some adjustments. For each section, I stapled in the centermost area of that section. And then I worked my way outwards to the sides, to each side. Then I moved to the opposite side of the first side that I started on, and I did the same thing. I stapled in the middle and I worked my way out to the edges. I did this on all 4 sides, and then I started to work on each corner. So the corner, remember the legs have like a curved edge to them, and you can feel that edge with your finger. So I pulled the fabric really tight, and with my fingers I figured out where to place the staple, and I worked my way all the way around the curve of that decorative leg. I took my time. I was sure to pull the fabric nice and tight, and I just went around that curve very slowly. Then it was time to cut off the excess. I used my scissors and my fingers, and I just worked slowly around the curve, taking very small snips of the fabric as I worked my way around the curve. I still have a pleat that I'm going to add to the corner, so I didn't cut all the way up. Let me show you how I make that pleat. See it there on the corner? I folded the fabric so that all the excess was folded in a nice neat triangle, and then I evenly dispersed the excess fabric on either side of the centermost area. It makes more sense to watch than it does to explain. It's not that complicated. I pulled it nice and tight, and then I used the pneumatic staple gun and I stapled around, feeling for that curve of the leg just like I did before. Then I continued to cut around that curve to expose the pretty carved leg of this footstool. Next, I used the pneumatic staple gun to finish stapling the fabric to the underside of the footstool. Let's clean up the raw edges. I chose to use jute braided trim. I love this stuff. It's so pretty, so farmhousey. And a glue gun. This is super easy to do. I worked in small sections. I applied small amounts of glue, and then I held the jute braid down so that all the edges would be caught with the glue. Careful with this, that hot glue gun can get really hot. I burned myself a couple times with this. To add the dust cover on the bottom, I cut a piece of the cambric large enough and a little extra so that I could fold under the edge. The folded edge is on the inside, you won't see it. And then I used my staple gun to work around. I start in the center of the cambric and put a staple, and then I stapled the edges close to the legs. Then I worked on the opposite side and I did the same thing. I folded it in towards the inside and I used a staple gun in the middle, and then I worked my way out. You'll notice here that I made an angled fold where the leg is, just to make it nice and neat. I decided to do a little bit of distressing on each carved leg, and I also added a button at each corner. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, could you please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We share lots of tutorials of all sorts of home decor and furniture projects.